Titanic. Titanic. Fan fiction about Titanic. It does exist. Obviously, it's about the movie. Both of the stories, in fact, are about the movie. And this is going to be an interesting episode. Because, yes, it's a double feature, but I'm not reading both stories out loud. The first story I'm going to be summarizing. And then the second story I will be reading out loud. Unfortunately. Yes, so, hold on, I just need to get the other story up and running, just so that way it'll be ready when I need to do it. So, the first story is called You Jump, I Jump, remember? This one. Yes, this one. Thankfully, it's too long to read aloud, which I am very glad, because, well, look. It's a blob of text. 3 blobs of text, in fact. The screen cap that I just showed you, by the way, isn't even the entirety of the first paragraph. Like, you have to scroll down a bit to get through the first paragraph. And then the second paragraph is the smallest of the 3. And then the third paragraph is, well, it's not as ridiculous as the first paragraph, but it's still ridiculous. So, this story, it pretty much takes place right when Jack gets framed for stealing the necklace. I'm going to assume you have all seen the movie Titanic. If you haven't seen the movie Titanic, and if you don't want to be spoiled, then go watch the movie. But at this rate, I'm going to assume that you've seen the movie. So it takes place right after the diamond gets supposedly stolen, but it was really just put in Jack's pocket. And the thing is, this story is mostly like it is in the movie. The only difference is that Cal rapes Rose. Not only does he rape her, but he kind of baits her up too. And the only other difference is that, well, it's actually rather funny, because the whole play out of this thing makes absolutely no sense. Like, you know, it kind of starts off as the normal thing where instead of slapping her across the face, he acts like he's going to have his way with her. And then, like, the steward comes over and tries to get them to wear the life jackets. And Cal's like, oh, come back in an hour. And it's like, no, if the bloody ship is sinking, the steward wouldn't have been like, okay, I'll leave you alone for a bit. I mean, the steward does eventually come back, but he conveniently comes back after the rape. And supposedly, Rose's mother is in the next room, and she somehow cannot hear the struggle. Because it's implied, it's like, oh, well, Cal covered Rose's mouth so she couldn't scream, but there were a few times that she was able to scream. And also, I know that Cal was supposed to be the villain in the movie, but he would not have raped Rose. Cal did love Rose. I feel like Cal did love Rose. He didn't respect her, and he treated her like property, but I do think in his own way, he loved Rose, and he wouldn't have bloody raped her. It's like, no. And also, he's supposed to be upper-class, polite society. Him slapping her across the face made sense in the movie. Him raping her in this story makes absolutely no sense at all. It was so bloody stupid. And then, you know, after he, you know, rapes her, he's trying to be all, like, somewhat playful with her, and she's having none of it. And then after, you know, the steward comes back and says, okay, you guys need to sort off, that's when Rose decides to go and save Jack. So the second paragraph is pretty much, you know, the scene where Rose finds Jack handcuffed, and she's like, oh, I'm going to go and try to save you. I'll be right back. So then the third paragraph is pretty much a summarized version of her finding the axe, freeing Jack, and the only difference is that Jack realizes, oh, Rose looks like she's been beaten up. What happened? And so, you know, she tells him what happened, and he's all, like, pissed off, and he's like, he's never going to touch you again. Never going to touch you again. And then pretty much the story ends with them breaking down the door and the White Star Line employee yelling at them about that being expensive, that they'll have to pay for that, and then yelling, shut up, and then them going to find a lifeboat, and that's pretty much the end of the story. This story was a complete and utter waste of time. It was horrendously written. Like, the blob of text paragraphs was just so ridiculous. And it's rather funny, because reading the reviews, I'll read the reviews. Guest 1. Very talented writing. Is this the first story you've ever seen, Guest? Because this is not talent at all. Unless they're talented at giving your readers a headache. The second person was like, oh, this is again very well written, but I think you should maybe add some more paragraphs. So I'm guessing that the original post of the story was just one massive, massive block of text. And then they saw this person's review. And then like, okay, I'll just add in a couple of paragraphs. It's like, no. Whenever there's lines of dialogue, that needs to be a paragraph. You can't just have it be a gigantic block of text. Because it's illegible. And I'm sorry, I did not really think this was well written either. I mean, I don't know. Maybe if it was broken up more, it might have been. But no, it wasn't, because they had thoughts, like they had Cal's thoughts in his head, and then they had Rose's thoughts in her head, and they had Jack's thoughts in his head. But instead of having it be thoughts, it's in quotations like they're speaking their thoughts out loud. Like it was a bloody soap opera. So it's like, no, this was not well written. This is awful. Awful. And so now, we're going to move on to the next story. King of the World. I don't think I'm sorry. The first story, I didn't say who the author was. The author is Titanic Lover Forever. Might as well see if they've done any other No. They just did this one story. Right then. Enough of that. So, Titanic Lover, so the summary is... there's no point in reading the summary because I already explained to you what this scene was all about. Rated M, obviously, for rape, blah, blah, blah. The story was published back in January of 2014. Right, now, well, actually, if that's the case, then I guess they never fixed the story. So I guess it was just the 3 massive block of text paragraph. Right. So now, the second story, King of the World, by Dot Destroyer 69. Here's a summary. You know that scene where Jack and Fabrizio are on the bow of the Titanic and Jack has his dick on Fabrizio's ass? No. No, I don't recall that scene because that didn't happen. He was standing behind Fabrizio, but he didn't have his dick on his... No. Get your mind out of the gutter. What if they took it a little further? Do not read if you get disgusted easily. Really? 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 The reason why... Right. So, right. This is rated M. It's English, it's humor. I highly doubt this is going to be humorous. At least it's only 729 words. 1 review, 1 fave, 1 follow, published back in September of 2020. So this is recent. Well, somewhat recent. Right, let's just read it and get it over with. Jack and Fabrizio are boarding the Titanic more exciting than they have ever been before. They hand a member of the crew their tickets and step onto the largest ship built as of yet in this year of 1912. Jack looks into Fabrizio's eyes. They're green and brown as though they were stained by coffee. Fabrizio and Jack have been homies. I don't believe the term homies existed in the year 1912. For years, and both of them were down to fuck each other, but they didn't know if the other was cool with it. Jack thinks to himself, I'ma fuck that dude tonight, but with my socks on, of course, because otherwise it would be gay. No, it would still be, if you're having a sexual relationship with another man and you're a man, that's gay. Like if you're doing that with a woman as well, like if I'm a woman and a woman together. Or if you're someone that likes both. I digress. Let's just get on with the story. The rest of the day went fine except for some thought. What the hell's a thought? Named Rose that wanted to get dicked down by Jack. She went on about how she was being forced into a marriage and Fabrizio and Jack weren't having any of it as they maliciously yelled, "Be gone, thought." Alright, give me a moment. I'm going to see if the term thought actually exists. It's spelled T-H-O-T, so give me 1 moment, please. 5 minutes later. Okay, I guess it is an actual word. So, it's thought, and it's a woman who has many casual sexual encounters or relationships. Okay, so it is an actual term, so, right. Not just something that this person made up off the top of their head. In unison forcing her to leave. That night, after a hearty dinner of ravioli or whatever the fuck Italians ate, Fabrizio retreated to the room he was staying in. Jack knocked at Fabrizio's with true intent, and that intent was tear that man's asshole to pieces. After a rapid succession of knocks, Fabrizio answered and said, "Sup, boy?" Jack firmly grabbed Fabrizio's thick ass and said, "We might be on the Titanic, but what's really unsinkable is that ass." Fabrizio pushed him away, surprised, and said, "N-word, you got socks on, right? I just have to make sure." It said, I don't like saying that word. And seeing neither Fabrizio or Jack are African American, it's very inappropriate for them to be saying that word anyway. And I don't... Of course that word existed back then. Bloody hell, slavery, Susan. Jack responded by pulling up his... Well, I mean, slavery didn't exist in 1912, but it was still rather recent. In the States, that is. Didn't get abolished until, like, the 1860s after the Civil War. Meg would know more about it because she's an American. Jack responded by pulling up his pant legs to reveal some long white socks, making him the most ungay man on the boat, and Fabrizio was wearing a similarly, especially not gay pair of socks. "Alright, cool, let's continue then, dog," Fabrizio says before embracing Jack and kissing him. Jack shuts the door and they both quickly get undressed, revealing Jack's magnum dong, which was approximately 10 inches in length and 3 inches in diameter. Well, it's more realistic than a 13-meter penis. Oh shit, my boy. They're spelling boy like the bloody text talk boy or whatever it's called. You know, B-O-I instead of B-O-Y. And when they said thick earlier, it was T-H-I-C-C. Don't get that slang. Fabrizio exclaims when he catches sight of Jack's pendulous cock. Jack bends Fabrizio over the coffee table and puts his hammer dick as far inside of him as the anatomy will allow. Fabrizio screams in pain and pleasure all at once. Jack absolutely eviscerates Fabrizio's asshole after pounding it for 10 hours straight. Jack finally comes and the most massive load any man has ever shot went right up Fabrizio's ass, and he can taste it, ew, but refuses to let it escape his mouth. Well, maybe he should go to a doctor, because I don't think your extremities are supposed to resurface from your mouth. Jack's reddish-orange load, clearly riddled with blood and STIs, oozes from Fabrizio's nose. Can I please have a break from disgusting stories? Is it really that hard to ask? I mean, this one isn't as ridiculous as the Nightmare Before Christmas story I read for the Halloween special, but still. And then, having to, with the lost episodes of Meg's old web series and that bloody Pokemon story, that one was rather disgusting too. Fabrizio opens the door and sees Jack, but something was off. Oh wait, I'm sorry. I missed a paragraph. Fabrizio's ass and Jack's horsecock were totally raw from the sheer friction involved in the act that they just committed. Fabrizio gets dressed and goes out to the deck to get some fresh air as Jack had violated Fabrizio's ass so hard the room stunk of pure sweat and rotten eggs. This is exactly what I'm talking about. As Fabrizio walks out on deck, he sees that thought from earlier about to jump off the front of the ship, and he screams, "Do a backflip on the way down, thought." Oh, that's charming. Satisfied with having witnessed another thought leave this world, makes his way back to his room. Well, Fabrizio is really awful in this story. Both of them are awful in this story. This entire story is just bloody awful. Fabrizio opens the door and sees Jack, but something was off. And then Fabrizio realizes Jack had no socks on, and as everyone knows, if you're in the presence of another man with your socks off, that's fucking gay. But you just had sex with him. Oh, whatever. Fabrizio drops to his knees. No, he yells. Sort of like that scene in Star Wars at the end of Revenge of the Sith. As he realizes that, in fact, the homie he thought he was going to be fucking for the rest of the time was actually on that gay shit. This makes no sense. You guys just had gay sex. It doesn't matter if you're wearing socks or not. If you're a man and if you want to screw another man, that makes you gay. Or at least bisexual if you like women as well. Fuck, Jack exclaims as he realizes the gay act he has just perpetrated. But they were wearing socks when they were doing... Oh, why am I arguing the logic of this? Fabrizio runs to the front of the boat where Rose had just jumped off, and he does the same, crying one single tear as he fell. Jack saddened by his lost whimpers, "Good night, sweet prince," before jumping off just the same, as he can no longer bear the weight of the gay shit he's done. Also, I think after that the boat sank and everyone died, but who fucking cares about that anyway? That was the stupidest thing I've ever read. And now this person's username is even more disgusting. Thought Destroyer 69. So this person is a misogynistic piece of shit by the looks of it. Might as well see if they've written any other stories, and thankfully they haven't. But they do have favourite stories. My Little Pony, a Mega Man crossover. Now I guess the My Little Pony story is a crossover. Lots of crossovers. Gargoyles and Ninja Turtles. A Playing Gargoyles story, another Gargoyles. Crossover with Superman and Warcraft. Gargoyles again. Warcraft and Naruto. Interesting. I mean, the stories themselves don't seem that bad, but I don't know. Really stupid story. Really obnoxious author. Thankfully, they've only written one story. And hopefully they don't write any other stories. And a guy, this is what his summary is, a guy who likes reading fics more than writing them. Then take down your story, please, because your story was offensive and stupid. I digress. Right. I digress. Right. Would I recommend either of today's stories? No. I mean, the block of text story, I'll give it credit, had more substance to it. And maybe if they actually put some decent layout into it, it would actually be a decent read. But no matter what, it's still very uncharacteristic of Cal to rape Rose. And this story, King of the World, was a waste of time. The story should be renamed King of the Shit because it was just a shit story. Waste of time reading it. Yes, I would not recommend either stories. And, you know, the story was also just distasteful too because I know it's supposed to be based off of the Titanic movie, but it was still very disregarding because the Titanic was a real thing. Real people did die. And, you know, the movie I felt was pretty tasteful and was respectful, but this was not. It really wasn't. But I digress. Well, if you guys like today's episode of FanFic Critic, please be sure to leave a like and leave a comment. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I would greatly appreciate it. I will see you all in the next episode. Until then, cheerio. Hello, dearie. Hey, Sue. How's your mum doing? Oh, she's fine. She was just showing me her camps in Fallout 76. Jessie was being adorable as always. That's good. I'm gonna assume you just filmed an episode of FanFic Critic. Yes, the episode's finalizing upstairs now. Should be done in like about 10 minutes, I'd say. I just wanted to sit down here and wait for you to come home because I knew you were gonna be home soon, so... So, the fanfic, was it a good, bad, mediocre? Let's just say for the thumbnail, you're probably gonna have to draw me like one of your French girls. Huh? I reviewed 2 Titanic fanfiction. Oh, I get it. I get it now. So, the fanfic, was it any good? The first one. The first one, I would say, was a bit more tolerable than the second. I did a double feature for this episode, and it was a weird double feature because the first story I did a summarized review, and then the second story I read aloud. Both of them were really atrocious, but I would say the first one was probably the more tolerable of the two. Well, now I'm very curious. Oh, you'll see when you watch the episode, dearie. I'll let you watch it after it's done finalizing upstairs. Well, I look forward to it. Hopefully. So, the lost episodes of my old web series, were you able to finish uploading those? Ah, yes, I did manage to finish uploading all the lost episodes. Have you, watched any? I watched the Pokemon Legend of Zelda crossover. I was reminded why I don't watch my old web series, because I was very, very cringeworthy back then. All swearing, kind of an ass, embarrassing. Ugh. I can understand that. I mean, I was rather cringeworthy back then too. I didn't think you were too bad, just maybe a bit more sweary and stuff like that, but that's just how your personality was back then. And you know, people change as they get older. But no, when I was, especially with episode 219, I wanted to reach through the computer screen and give myself a good throttling. Why was that? Well, that was the episode. I don't know if you're going to want to watch that one or not, but that was that's really disturbing Pokemon story. The episode that I ended up using the face pistol on you one last time, and I took over the review, and I just so angry with myself because I got very stupid drunk throughout the episode. There was so much footage I had to delete of me just drinking stupidly, and then at one point I had passed out for a couple of hours, so I had to cut all that out. And then, you know, I finally sober up and you know, I realised that you're still unconscious, so instead of, you know, stopping the bloody review and bringing you to the hospital, I just decided to go on with the review, so, yes. Really, really angry with myself from back then. Well, I wouldn't beat yourself up over it too much. Again, we were younger back then, didn't have as much common sense as we did now, so... And hey, fine now, so there's that. You knew then that you didn't fully heal, didn't you? I know you didn't want to worry me, but I do wish you had said something. Because if I had known, I definitely would not have used the face pistol on you that day. Well, that would have defeated the purpose, because I wanted you to in case things took a turn for the worse. That's why I didn't tell you. And I thought I could handle it. I would have found another way to restrain you, Meg. I hadn't quite mastered the Vulcan pinch back then, but having you be temporarily paralyzed would have been better than, you know, causing more damage to you with that bloody gun. But I digress. What happened happened. It's in the past. It's been years. It's rather ironic, actually, because the final episode that I posted for the lost episodes, I was playing the role of FanFic Critic, and, you know, it's ironic because years later, I actually did take on the title. I'd forgotten about that. How did that fanfic turn out, by the way? Oh, that story. Most of the review was not even me reading a fanfic. It was me reading an author's note. Okay, how long is the episode? Oh, the episode's like 50 minutes long. 50 minutes? And that was mostly the author's note? Yes, that bad. I think maybe 10-15 minutes of the episode was me actually reading the story. But most of it was the bloody author's note. It was so bloody ridiculous. It was so ridiculous. And I wanted to try to speed up the footage. But, and I'm still learning how to use the editing software. Maybe there was a way to do it. But it would let me speed up the video, but it wouldn't let me speed up the audio. Okay. Why would it only let you speed up the video? That's silly. I know. It's like, obviously, if I want to speed up the video, I want to speed up the audio as well. But I digress. I mean, there must be a way to do it. I'll figure it out eventually. So the viewers will just have to tolerate a ridiculously long episode. And I'm going to make sure that my episodes never get to that length. I mean, there was one episode of mine that was long, but that was because of the bloody creator spying on us, so there's that. Yeah. Really sick and tired of her frickin' spying. Oh, how cute they're talking about me spying. I would never do that. Oh, by the way, there's still some Chinese food in the fridge for you, dearie. So, I saved that for you to have. Meg, It was your birthday the other day. That's for you to enjoy. Are you sure? I'm sure. I've already had my fill. Okay, if you insist. This might be a little cliche, but, do you want to watch Titanic tonight? I suppose we can watch Titanic tonight. Why not? We haven't seen that in a while. Besides, I can get those bloody stories out of my head by watching the actual film and not the fan-fiction garbage that I reviewed earlier. I would like that a lot. Sounds good then. Oh, there is a couple of pieces of cake left. You want to have that now? There is still cake left. You know what? I would love to have some cake. Really good cake, by the way.